The day I stopped wasting money wasn't the day I got a raise. It wasn't the day I learned how to invest. And it definitely wasn't the day I started making six figures. It was the day I learned a simple rule involving just one number, $100. At first, it sounded almost too simple to matter. How could one tiny rule change years of bad financial habits? But over time, I realized something surprising. My financial problems were never caused by one huge mistake. They were caused by dozens of small decisions that felt harmless in the moment. A coffee here. A gadget there. A subscription I forgot about. A sale that convinced me I was saving money by spending it. None of those purchases ruined my finances by themselves. But together, they quietly stole thousands of dollars from my future. The $100 rule forced me to slow down long enough to notice what I was actually doing. And once I did, everything started to change. For years, I thought I was pretty responsible with money. I paid my bills on time. I avoided credit card debt whenever possible. I even managed to save a little every month. But somehow, my bank account never seemed to grow. Every paycheck disappeared before the next one arrived. Whenever I checked my balance, I found myself asking the same question. Where did all my money go? Sound familiar? Most people assume financial success is about earning more. But earning more doesn't automatically solve spending problems. In fact, many people who double their income end up feeling just as broke because their spending grows just as quickly. This is called lifestyle inflation. The more you make, the more you convince yourself you deserve expensive upgrades. A nicer phone. A better apartment. A newer car. Premium streaming services. More expensive restaurants. None of these purchases seem outrageous on their own. The problem is that they become your new normal. Once that happens, your higher income disappears just as fast as your old income did. I experienced exactly that. Every time my income increased, I celebrated by increasing my lifestyle. Instead of buying freedom, I bought bigger monthly expenses. Looking back, I wasn't actually rewarding myself. I was trapping my future self. Everything changed during a conversation with an older coworker. He wasn't rich. He didn't drive a luxury car. He didn't wear expensive watches. But somehow, he always seemed relaxed whenever money came up. One afternoon, I asked him what his secret was. He smiled and said something I'll never forget. If something costs more than $100, I never buy it on the same day. That was it. No complicated budgeting system. No spreadsheet. No financial jargon. Just one simple rule. Anything under $100 could be purchased immediately if it fit my budget. Anything over $100 required a waiting period. Sometimes 24 hours. Sometimes 48. Sometimes even 30 days, depending on the purchase. At first I laughed. I thought the rules sounded too simple to work. But I decided to try it anyway. The first test came only 3 days later. I walked into an electronics store to buy a phone charger. 5 minutes later, I found myself holding a pair of wireless headphones priced at $149. I didn't need them. My current headphones worked perfectly. But the display was beautiful. The packaging looked premium. There was a limited time discount. People around me were buying them. Suddenly, buying those headphones felt completely reasonable. Then I remembered the rule. Over $100. No buying today. I put them back on the shelf. Honestly, I felt disappointed. For the rest of the afternoon, I kept thinking about those headphones. I imagined how great they would sound. I imagined using them at the gym. I even imagined how people might notice them. The next morning, something interesting happened. The excitement was gone. By the second day, I barely remembered them. By the third day, I realized I had almost spent $150 on something that would have made almost no difference in my life. That single experience taught me something important. Impulse doesn't last. But the bill does. Retailers understand this better than anyone. That's why stores use countdown timers, limited time offers, flash sales. exclusive launches, one-click checkout. They're not trying to help you make better decisions. They're trying to stop you from thinking long enough to change your mind. Because time is the enemy of impulse. The longer you wait, the more logical your brain becomes. That's exactly why the $100 rule works. It creates space between emotion and action. And that small gap changes everything. Psychologists have studied delayed gratification for decades. Again and again, the research shows that people who can delay immediate rewards often make better long-term decisions. Money works the same way. Every purchase competes with your future. When you spend $100 today, you're not only giving up that money. You're giving up every opportunity that money could have created. It could have stayed in your emergency fund. It could have reduced stress during an unexpected expense. It could have been invested. Even small amounts invested consistently can grow over time because your money starts earning money for you. The most expensive purchases aren't always the biggest ones. Sometimes they're the unnecessary ones. Once I adopted the rule, I started noticing patterns. Almost every expensive purchase I regretted had one thing in common. I bought it while I was excited. Very few purchases made after careful waiting ended up becoming regrets. That's because excitement fades. Need remains. Today, I still buy things that cost more than $100. I'm not against spending money. Money should improve your life. The difference is that now, every expensive purchase survives a simple test. If I still want it after waiting. If it truly solves a problem. If it fits my financial goals. Then I buy it without guilt. But if the desire disappears after a day or two, I keep the money. And surprisingly, that happens far more often than I ever expected. The $100 rule didn't make me rich overnight. It didn't double my income. It didn't magically eliminate every financial mistake. What it did was much more valuable. It gave me control. Instead of reacting emotionally, I started making intentional decisions. Instead of asking, "Can I afford this?" I started asking, "Is this worth delaying my future for?" That single question changed the way I looked at every dollar. Financial freedom rarely comes from one massive breakthrough. It usually comes from hundreds of ordinary decisions made consistently over many years. Small habits create big outcomes. Every dollar you don't waste is a dollar working toward the life you actually want. Maybe your number isn't $100. Maybe it's 50. Maybe it's 200. The exact amount doesn't matter. The habit does. Create a waiting rule that fits your income. Use it every single time. You may be surprised by how many purchases quietly disappear once you give yourself time to think. Sometimes the smartest financial decision isn't finding a better investment. Sometimes it's simply waiting one more day before reaching for your wallet. If this idea made you think differently about money, you're already one decision closer to changing your financial future. And if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more simple, practical ideas that can help you build lasting wealth, one smart decision at a time. Over the next few months, I noticed something I had never paid attention to before. Most of the things I wanted weren't actually things I needed. They were things I wanted because someone else had them. A friend bought a new smartwatch. Suddenly, mine felt outdated. A coworker upgraded to a bigger TV. Now my perfectly good television seemed too small. Someone posted vacation photos from a luxury resort. Within minutes, I was searching for flights I couldn't really afford. Nothing in my life had changed. The only thing that changed was what I was comparing myself to. That's one of the biggest financial traps in the modern world. We're no longer comparing ourselves to our neighbors. We're comparing ourselves to millions of carefully edited lives online. Every scroll tells us we're missing something. A better car. A better house. Better clothes. A better lifestyle. And every advertisement promises that happiness is just one purchase away. But here's the truth. If buying more things created lasting happiness, the people who spend the most would also be the happiest. That clearly isn't the case. The excitement from buying something new fades surprisingly fast. Psychologists even have a name for it, the hedonic treadmill. You get used to your new purchase, and before long, you're chasing the next one. The cycle never ends. The $100 rule interrupted that cycle. Instead of asking, "Do I want this?" I started asking much better questions. Will I still care about this next month? Does this solve a real problem? Would I rather own this item or keep the money? Will this purchase make my life better a year from now? Those questions changed everything. One weekend, I almost bought a designer jacket that cost over $300. It looked amazing. It fit perfectly. The salesperson told me there were only a few left. Old me would have reached for my wallet immediately. Instead, I followed my rule. I walked away. 3 days later, I completely forgot about the jacket. A month later, I couldn't even remember what brand it was. That experience taught me another lesson. Urgency is often manufactured. Businesses want you to believe that every deal is your last chance. But another sale always comes. Another product always launches. Another trend always replaces the old one. Patience saves more money than perfect timing. As the months passed, my savings slowly grew. Not because I suddenly became rich. Not because I stopped enjoying life. Simply because I stopped buying things I never truly wanted. For the first time in years, I had money sitting in my account after payday. At first, it didn't seem like much. A few $100s. Then 1,000. Then several thousand. What surprised me wasn't the amount. It was the feeling. For years, I believed expensive purchases made me feel successful. But having money in the bank gave me something much better. Peace. I slept better. Unexpected expenses no longer felt like disasters. When my car needed repairs, I paid the bill without panic. When my laptop finally died, replacing it didn't require a credit card. That's what financial security really looks like. It's not showing people what you own. It's knowing you can handle life's surprises. The funny thing is that once I had savings, I actually wanted fewer things. I no longer felt the need to impress strangers. I no longer chased every trend. Confidence slowly replaced comparison. That's because real wealth changes your mindset before it changes your lifestyle. People often think wealthy individuals have more options because they spend more. In reality, many become wealthy because they spend less than everyone expects. They understand something simple. Every dollar has a job. If you spend it today, it can no longer work for tomorrow. Imagine two people earning exactly the same income. One buys almost everything the moment they want it. The other waits before making larger purchases. 5 years later, they may have earned the same salary. But they won't have the same financial future. One will own memories of impulse purchases. The other will own investments, savings, and choices. That's the real power of delayed spending. You're not just saving money. You're buying flexibility. You're buying freedom. You're buying time. And those are things money can't easily replace once they're gone. Maybe you're thinking, $100 isn't enough to change my life. You're right. $100 by itself won't. But habits never work alone. A single workout doesn't build a healthy body. One healthy meal doesn't transform your health. Reading one book doesn't make you an expert. Small actions repeated consistently create extraordinary results. Money works exactly the same way. The goal isn't to save $100. The goal is to become the kind of person who thinks before spending. Once your identity changes, your financial decisions naturally change with it. Eventually, I made one small adjustment to the rule. If I decided not to buy something over $100, I transferred that money into my investment account instead. At first, it felt strange. Every purchase I avoided became an investment in my future. Months later, watching those investments grow became more exciting than buying new gadgets ever was. My source of satisfaction had changed. Instead of collecting more possessions, I started collecting more freedom. That's a game anyone can win. You don't need a six-figure income. You don't need perfect budgeting skills. You don't need to be a financial expert. You simply need a system that protects you from your own emotions. Because emotions are expensive. Patience is profitable. If you decide to try this rule, don't worry about choosing the perfect number. Start with an amount that feels meaningful for your income. Maybe it's $50. Maybe it's $100. Maybe it's $250. The number isn't what changes your finances. The pause does. That pause gives logic enough time to catch up with emotion. And sometimes, that's all you need to make a completely different decision. Years from now, you probably won't remember the impulse purchase you decided to skip. But you'll definitely remember the confidence that came from finally taking control of your money. Financial freedom isn't built through one giant decision. It's built through hundreds of quiet moments when nobody is watching. Moments when you choose your future over your impulse. Moments when you decide that temporary excitement isn't worth permanent financial stress. The $100 rule didn't change my finances because of the money it saved. It changed my finances because it changed the person making the decisions. And once that happened, everything else became easier. So before your next expensive purchase, ask yourself one simple question. Will I still want this tomorrow? You might be surprised by the answer. And that single answer could become the beginning of a completely different financial future. If you found value in this story, subscribe and join me for more simple ideas that make personal finance easier to understand and easier to apply. Small changes, repeated consistently, can lead to extraordinary results, and your next smart financial decision could start today.